the Obama-Trump photo, yes, have a peaceful transition, but you don't need to be yucking it up and smiling and laughing with the guy.
You mean the Biden?
No, the Obama-Trump one was Obama just kind of sitting there like,
oh, the beginning, the first time.
Yeah, because it's happened before.
You mean the first time?
We've been here before. We've been here before.
I thought you were just talking about the one from a week ago. Yeah, no, we have been here before, and it's going to be bigger, badder, bolder.
Yeah, it's like you literally can see.
Because this time it's personal. Democrats were slated to get wiped out in the 2022 midterm elections. One reason that didn't happen is because of people like Wiley Nickel. Wiley was a Democratic lawyer and state senator who flipped a Republican-held House seat by 3 percentage points in the last election. When North Carolina Republicans redistricted the seat to make it more Republican-leaning, Nickel decided not to run this year, looking ahead to a Senate race in 2026. So Wiley Nickel's already speaking up about what Democrats need to do now to prevail against Donald Trump. He's got a big idea. It's one that I like. In fact, it's one I had myself, and I started doing research on it and found out he'd already written about it before I could get it out the door. So Republicans are attacking Congressman Nickel for this idea and just for thinking outside the box. But you know what they say in the South? It's the hit dog that hollers. So today we are going to talk to Congressman Wiley Nickel here on Trailblaze. Congressman, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, it's so great to be with you. Just amazed at all the tremendous work you've done since going back to, the 90s for Clinton and the Gore campaign. So it's so great to be with you here.
As Democrats, we sometimes jump right into the policy, right? We jump right into talking about like what the things are and what's happening. So I want to talk a little bit about your life. So you are married, you got 2 kids now, right?
Yep, 9 and 12. I would love talking about the kids. But yeah, that's my group back home.
Yeah, and you traveled around a bunch. So if you could fill us in a little bit on how you got to Congress. So I know you traveled around a bunch. You were born in California. Your mom was in the news business. Where'd you go, and how'd you end up in North Carolina?
Yeah, no, my wife is from North Carolina, so we moved to North Carolina a while ago. Had 2 kids. Was practicing law, and thought that would be what I focused on. Things changed after Trump was elected. Now 8 years ago, and ran for the state Senate. Took Barack Obama's words to heart. You upset about the results? Grab a clipboard, start organizing. Served 2 terms in our state Senate, and now my first term in Congress. Like you said, we flipped one of just 6 Republican seats from red to blue in the last election. But right after that, Republicans were able to take control of our Supreme Court and redrew our maps with a brutal gerrymander for Democrats against Democrats. We have right now a 7-7 delegation, exactly what you should expect to have in a 50-50 state like North Carolina with fair maps. But that's not what we had in this last election. My seat was gerrymandered, cut up into a bunch of different districts. The part of my district that had the number attached was a super safe Republican seat. So there was no way we could run and win in a seat like that. So not on the ballot this cycle. And to Jamal, just for folks listening, it looks like we're tracking a 220 to 215 House. So that means the 3 seats that Republicans stole from Democrats by gerrymandering mid-census in North Carolina is going to be the difference in Hakeem Jeffries being speaker or not. If we had the same maps, I'd be coming back to Congress with 2 more Democrats beside me, and Hakeem Jeffries would be Speaker of the House. That's just how horrible gerrymandering is, how effective it is, and frankly, it's just wrecking Congress. We're on track to be the least productive Congress in our nation's history because of gerrymandering. So it's something that should be top of mind for folks.
So let's go back a little bit, because you won that seat in 2022, which, as I started, was a year that Democrats were supposed to lose in the House, and you won that seat. It had been a Republican seat before that. Tell me. It's a diverse district. You've got a lot of people from a lot of different places. Let's be frank, you're a white Southern Democrat. I did a lot of politics in the South. White Southern Democratic guys are not all over the Democratic delegation from those Southern states. Tell me how. What did you learn when you're campaigning in that district, and how you talk to people to knit together the coalition you needed to win?
Yeah, part of the problem is we have so few people who go to Washington focused on solving problems. That was the approach I took in the state Senate, and then again in our race for Congress. And we flipped a Republican seat because we talked about bringing our country together, running as a different kind of Democrat with different ideas to again work across the aisle. Focused on economic issues. We talked a lot about the work I wanted to focus on to combat inflation, a high cost of groceries, housing, a huge issue in North Carolina, childcare. Those were the things that we focused on, and I think that's the winning message for Democrats, focusing on those kitchen table issues that folks truly care about. And we were able to do what folks didn't think we could do in the last election in 2022, flip a Republican seat. And
now, I imagine a lot of people in your district are parents, right? So, some of the issues that Democrats talk about, which have to do with families, and your dad, you've got a couple of kids you talked about. Tell me, is that something that helps you relate to the folks in the district? It's something that, people kind of, is that where they live, about how they figure out what to do with their kids?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, that's been my big priority, and kind of the secret sauce is focusing on issues that matter for parents. So I'm part of a group that has gotten a lot of traction in this Congress, the Congressional Dads Caucus. I think a really great lens to kind of look at these economic issues through, the role of dads, as part of, the public policy work we do here in Washington. So we're talking about paid family medical leave, childcare, making those child tax credits permanent. Those are the things that, I've spent a lot of time talking about and focusing on. And that's, I think, what folks in a very, very, a real 50-50 district, want to focus on, equal number of urban, suburban, rural, Democrat, Republican, independents. Just, it's literally a third in the current district that now, was lost through gerrymandering. But, one of the great ways to come to Congress, where you get to focus on, doing the things that we don't hear a lot about, bringing our country together and solving those problems.
Yeah, a lot of people, when they think about politicians, right, we all look like these people, those of us who are, whether we're on television or we're in politics, we look like people who had this kind of storybook life. Like, we made it to this place because we didn't have challenges. Nothing really got us to this place. And I know, reading about you a little bit, you did have some challenges. I know you lost your dad pretty early, and I imagine that had some kind of impact on what you were thinking about, just even as you started your journey, whether it was in your family or as a politician.
No, I mean, everybody has their reason why they get involved. I've dedicated, most of my adult life to trying to fix a broken political system. My dad died of cancer when I was 18. So when you have a health, situation, it shakes a family and makes you, evaluate what your priorities are. And for me, that's always been the focus is making sure, we get affordable health care for everyone. So, we hopefully can avoid that for somebody else and make the investments to keep families healthy. And that's what got me, in there volunteering for Bill Clinton and, Al Gore back in 92 as a high school kid, then working, alongside you and others, for the Clinton Gore 96 race and beyond.
Yeah. So now here you are, you're in Congress, and obviously you just talked about the redistricting that happened for your own particular seat. Donald Trump had a big year. He even won in North Carolina, which was a big battleground contest. And then you came out with an idea. You wrote a column this last week or so. You wrote a column that we kind of alluded to when we got started about a big idea that Democrats should think about to hold Donald Trump accountable. You want to tell us a little bit about your shadow cabinet?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. This is I think a really important conversation for Democrats right now. How do we respond to Trump for the next 4 years? And we're going to be in the minority. Right now, we've lost the House and Senate, and he's got the White House for 4 years. So we have to change the way we respond to Trump. And folks are looking for specific things we can do as Democrats. And I borrowed from our Canadian and Australian and friends in Great Britain who've had shadow cabinets for the last 100 years. This has been a staple of their democracy in those countries. And all it is it's just...
Yeah, how does this work? All right, tell us how this works.
Yeah, super simple. Shadow cabinet is just the leaders of the opposition. So in this case, it's Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, naming 26 Democrats from the House and Senate to be watchdogs for each cabinet agency. There's no power, there's no money that comes with it. It's just saying, listen, here's going to be our point person for each and every cabinet, secretary. So, you get Matt Gaetz as the Attorney General. I hope that doesn't happen, but if it does, I propose Adam Schiff as our shadow Attorney General, as again just a watchdog, and more importantly, someone.
So the Republicans are saying though that this is like a shadow government. Like you're proposing this as a way to undermine the Trump presidency. Is it the same thing as kind of having a secret government cabal that's following around these guys?
I'm so glad you asked that, because that's been the right wing media's attack, and it's just nuts. Breitbart, a totally irresponsible news source, had a headline that said Wiley Nickel proposes shadow government. I've never said those words. There's nothing that is even close to a shadow government. A shadow cabinet is, again, just appointing people to be the spokesperson for the opposition. So people to put our good ideas forward, not just saying the things we're against, but the things we're for. But we definitely need those folks to talk about and hold Trump accountable. And that's what a shadow cabinet does in these other countries. So the folks who don't understand it, they just have to ask their Canadian or Australian or friends, in Great Britain, how does this work? Super simple, but it allows us to get all of the opposition groups focused on one person who can be our good messenger, and just even on the smaller level, when you get, shadow cabinet members, like it's a great source for leaks for folks, in the bureaucracy. They know, like, oh gosh, this is something really bad happening. There's someone I can tell. And, it allows us to focus our opposition, in terms of messaging, in a really specific way. And it's all laid out in that Washington Post opinion piece, which was the start for us.
So here's what I like about it, what you just said a little bit. So one, everybody knows who the person is who's tasked with following HHS or tasked with following even the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, right? We all have somebody who's a point person, those of us who are outside the government. And also that staff is focused on it. They're going to spend some time paying attention to it, because here's a reality. Obviously, you're a member of Congress. People got 1,000 things to do. And if you're a newer member of Congress, a first termer, or maybe somebody who's obviously you're in the minority, so you're not chairing a committee, you've got time to really become the person that everybody knows where to go to. So just even as a personal profile builder, it gives you an invested interest in talking about this and talking about what's happening inside the government. And everybody, again, knows. So if any TV network or newspaper wants to have a question, they just, like you said, they call Adam Schiff and ask questions about the Justice Department, or they, call Greg Meeks and ask questions about the department he's following. So that's an easy way for people to be able to keep tabs on what's happening in this government, when we know Donald Trump and those guys are going to be doing everything they can to sneak as much policy through as they possibly can.
And again, just so folks really understand it, this is just appointing one Democratic member of Congress as a watchdog for each agency, and just saying, when they say something, here's our response. You've got Johanna Hayes from Connecticut, former Teacher of the Year, an amazing member of Congress. But, if she was this shadow Secretary of Education, they try to destroy, and get rid of the Department of Education. She is a fantastic messenger, talking about the role of public education in the U.S. and why we need to keep the Department of Education. But that's the focus, and one that I think we need to do. We need to up our game. We need to change our game for Trump. This allows us to consolidate that messaging and get. We have amazing messengers too as Democrats. People who have a lot of ability to really push a narrative and to talk about the things we're for. And I want to get them to work. I want to get folks focusing on each and every agency so that we can shed light on what Trump's doing.
And in my book, I think we also want people to propose things, right? Because I think, in the normal course of business, we always think, well, they've got control. Let's let them do what they're going to do. And it'll be a referendum on their judgment. I think this is something different. I think people now know they want people going to be on the side of change. And the Democratic Party has to position itself as a change agent. And you can't just be against everything that Trump is doing. You got to have ideas of your own. We learned this very early. It takes a horse to beat a horse. And it's going to take ideas to beat good ideas to beat bad ideas. That was always the Clinton model. I think that's something we ought to pay attention to.
And again, this gives us that platform over and over and over for very specific policy proposals for the things that we want to do. We tell the voters, listen, for education department. Here are the good things, the positive things we would do if we're in charge, and we get a spokesperson to do that. Again, for every single policy area.
All right, I want to ask you one more question before I let you go. Obviously, North Carolina was a big battleground state this year. Vice President Harris looked like she was competing well. She ended up losing by about 3 points. What do you think Democrats need to do to win a state like North Carolina in the next election? I was just reading something about this upcoming census and looking at population trends, and it might be some of the big states like New York and California are states where we lose population, which means we might lose additional electoral college votes out of those states. We got to make those votes up somewhere. North Carolina seems like a place where we could do it. What do Democrats need to do to win North Carolina?
Yeah, no, I think it's really simple. The road to the White House runs through North Carolina. We are moving in the right direction. And, for folks who are watching, we won just about all the other major races in North Carolina as Democrats. We won our governor's race, our lieutenant governor's race, our attorney general's race, secretary of state, superintendent of public education, and just now by literally, a few dozen votes, our race for the North Carolina Supreme Court. We flipped what was a really tough gerrymandered House seat with Don Davis. So Democrats were very successful, other than the top of the ticket. But the folks who communicated for those economic issues that middle class voters are focused on, I think were rewarded. And that was really my takeaway. We got to be more focused on that. That's why you see Democrats winning all these Senate races in states that Trump won. Alyssa Slotkin in Michigan, Ruben Gallego in Arizona, and on and on. We won, Nevada, and again our governor's race, and Wisconsin. So the same states that voted for Trump voted for Democrats too. So it was a really close election. But my focus, and I think my advice for folks who are paying attention, for what we should do next as Democrats is really focus on the good things we want to do to solve problems. That's what folks really want to hear about.
Well, if you look at Tennessee, South Carolina, Alabama, Florida, those old Confederate states, frankly, haven't had a great track record in getting Democrats elected statewide recently. But yet Virginia, North Carolina seem like they're doing okay. So maybe we just got to keep pushing things down that I-85, I-75 corridor so we keep going south and we can win some more of these states. Wiley Nickel, thank you for joining us on our podcast, Trailblaze. Really appreciate you being here.
Thanks so much. It was so great to be with you.
Hey, Nayyera. So what do you think? Wiley Nickel.
I love that there is a Southern white gentleman from the Democratic Party who is willing to be bold and think differently, as you said. It's just this idea that is so pervasive, clearly throughout the Biden administration, but also still continuing, that Democrats can fix things and get back to the norms and standards by norming harder.
Right.
And
there is no right.
The opposition, right, the opposition, look what they did to Obama. Tea Party insurgency, Mitch McConnell denying Supreme Court seats, coming up with every loophole and reason that was never done before, but finding a loophole and making that the story and making that the new thing that you do. And I'm not saying break laws, but you cannot do things the same way.
But break customs.
We had with Obama a Democratic president, Democratic majority, and we want to treat the Republican version of that the Obama Trump photo. Yes, have a peaceful transition, but you don't need to be yucking it up and smiling and laughing with the guy.
You mean the Biden?
No, the Obama Trump one was Obama just kind of sitting there like,
oh, the beginning, the first time.
Yeah, because it's happened before.
You mean the first time?
We've been here before. We've been here before.
I thought you were just talking about the one from a week ago. Yeah, no, we have been here before, and it's going to be bigger, badder, bolder.
Yeah, it's like you literally can see.
Because this time it's personal.
You can see, though, that Obama's sitting there kind of like, all right, here's Trump. I'm doing the peaceful transfer of power, but I'm not going to pretend this is okay. And then you see Biden doing the old guy thing of like, oh, yeah, ha, 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 we're here. And just we don't need to play that game anymore. In fact, that's the losing version of the game. So to your question, I really like that he was willing to think out of the box, but also that you are looking at other places that are democracies. How do they handle these same problems?
Right. Yeah, no, that's right. We got to think bolder, look for other models. And then, listen, at the end of the day, chaos is part of what these guys are up to, right? They actually want to break the system. So we look at this, we say, oh, Matt Gaetz and this defense nominee and Tulsi Gabbard. Like, the point is they want all the systems to be broken. And because what happens when that occurs is that Donald Trump becomes the only central authority, and he can make all the decisions because nothing else is really equipped. And also, nobody else in the country is looking for this norming that you're talking about, right? Because people don't think institutions are working for them. So they're like, break it. I don't care. It's not working for me. You can do whatever you want to do with it. The question is my life going to be better? So I'll finish with this. I think what Trump is on his way to doing something that's not going to work, right? Like, if you look at all the policies, it's just clear that if they do any of this stuff, it's just not going to work. The question for me, though, because let's take Trump out of it. The question for me is the left, is the Democratic Party, are the people who say that we care, are we going to be credible with the people who we're supposed to be fighting for? Once they get disillusioned with what's happening in Washington, are they going to turn to us as credible partners, or are they just going to turn off and tune out because they're going to think pox on all your houses? None of y'all get it. I'm just going to go do something else.
No, I think it's already happening, right? The immediate reaction of all of these women who did engage and participated, whether they were Black or white, or any other color in between, after Trump's election was, okay, don't ask me to put on a pink hat and march in the streets. I'm not doing that this time around, right? There is a complete desire for big change within the Democratic Party. And frankly, the Democratic Party also needs to understand what the left is saying, because the left and the Democratic Party are not synonymous. They have not found common ground. And like you said, these are the people that need to be part of this winning coalition, literally to protect things like herd immunity. RFK Jr. has told NIH, thank you so much. You guys have done a great job. We don't need to research infectious diseases anymore for the next 8 years. Also, I don't know why he said 8 years. I guess he's thinking JD Vance for another 4, but he does not want to do research on infectious diseases, which are only increasing because of climate change, the clearing of, nature and people and animals and nature coming into closer contact, all of them. Like, that's kind of the thing that governments can do. I can't do that. I can't do massive amounts of research and share the results with the population. That's not something that people can do in community. That's literally one of the basic functions of government, keeping people healthy and safe. So if you're not going to do that, who is?
No, that's absolutely right. And the question now becomes, like you're talking about, if RFK is in this office and he is removing these safety mechanisms that we're talking about. And you and I had a conversation offline a week or so ago that really got me thinking, talking about some of, maybe you could talk about this, your family and other people who've talked about living in a society where you can't trust the government, right? You can't trust regulation. You can't trust anything is going to work the way it is. And we take for granted here in America that we believe that the systems are fundamentally going to work for us, right? We fought through a bunch of this stuff 100 years ago to be able to get these things to work, right? And you go back and read these books about the meat industry from the 1930s, where everything was just horrible. You didn't know what was going to show up on your plate based on like what you bought in the market. We could be headed back to that very same system when you get rid of these agencies whose job it is to make sure that we're all safe.
Yeah, there is a wonderful but also very naive thing about living and growing up in America that is not experienced in, Africa, Asia, many parts of Europe. And that is the ability to walk into a grocery store, get a gallon of milk and know that it's actually milk. And that actually there are other things in there in that label, and you trust that label. Whether or not you understand it is different, but you trust it. And then you go to pick up a prescription, and at the CVS the prescription you're getting, that is what the medicine is, and that there's a history of a doctor and other people saying this will do what you need to do. Like that's like a morning routine. Your grocery store, get your pharmacy, and then go pick up your kids from school, knowing that the bus is expected to show up, and you get upset when the bus doesn't show up on time. And you get upset when that bus stop sign opens and people decide to just roll right through. Those are the things that actually our government has made possible for us that does not exist elsewhere in the world. You cannot rely on traffic to operate in a consistent way. You have to find out in your community which is the trusted salesperson, that they're not watering it down and you're not actually really getting milk. And there is no like FDA equivalent. You just go to the, one guy and hope that when you ask for the medicine, it's actually what you're supposed to be getting. Like the amount of quote unquote individual authority that exists can be debilitating, because I can't make those medicines at home.
And I will tell you, I have been in a European country that I will not name because I don't want people attacking me for this, but I've been in a European country in the last 20 years, 15 years, when you want to get something like your telephone connected, right? You want to get your power turned on, and you got to, frankly, know somebody at the company to get it done fast, or maybe you got to pay somebody off in order to get it done fast, because everything is like, everything's just got like a little taste. People just want like a little taste. And so if you're not part of, like, I was in South America in a country a few years ago on a trip, just visiting, and the currency was so fluctuated so much. You had to pay a guy to come to your house and then exchange currency like you were doing a drug deal, because if you got the money out of the ATM machine, you're not going to get the best rate, and the rates were changing so often. So you had to like exchange currency like you were buying marijuana, right? Like this is the society that we don't have to have in the United States, but that people all over the world are having to navigate.
People are grateful overseas to be able to vaccinate their children, because like, my child will grow up safe and healthy. And I am seeing in communities nearby, lefty communities, this is not just a conservative thing, obviously, that now measles has popped up again. And that a family had their child got whooping cough because they declined the vaccine, and their kid is in a breathing tube. Like, oh my God, I had no idea. I'm like, you really have no idea how bad polio was. Yeah. And we can rely on Elon Musk to make the Cybertruck version of the Iron Lung, and we'll see how that gets distributed. But that's the path we're headed on at this moment.
Right. We've gotten better because we tried to get better. I mean, this is the fundamental thing about diversity, is a fundamental thing about, health and safety. We got better because we tried to get better. And when we stop trying, we're going to stop getting better. It's going to go back. And there is no stasis. You can't just tread water. Things either move forward or they move back. They don't just stay the same. And so we got to pay attention to this. And so again, for me, we can talk about Donald Trump all day and talk about the right and the
it's not about movement, him.
But
not about him anymore.
The question is, what about us, and what are we going to build, and what role are we going to play so that our neighbors and friends and relatives who either are checked out because they think it doesn't work, or they voted for him because they figure, what the hell, like throw something at it. When things go badly, will they turn to us and say, okay, you seem like you know what you're doing. Let's fix this. We got work to do.
There needs to be, right, the idea that there needs to be an alternative. And I'm not convinced every Democrat is ready to be an alternative, right? Be something that is different, that offers another point of view, or even that is willing to check what they see coming. And that's going to be, but it's going to have to be an evolution of the Democratic Party, an evolution of this idea and concept of what is left and what organizing and who folks are. And that evolution for me has to start with empowering folks who are under the age of 50. Let's start with that.
And I will say, yes. And I will say, I'm not convinced that everything we come up with is going to fit into a neat left-right paradigm, right? There are going to be some things that might look more conservative in the way that we think about it. But the idea is that it's going to actually challenge the existing infrastructure to do something different than what it's been doing before, in order to improve people's lives in a way that, really matters. And some things that I think companies recognize are going to have to come from, like, it's amazing. Some of these people who are advising Trump get so many government subsidies, like these big companies that get government subsidies to sell their products. And yet they're trying to tell everybody that government doesn't work.
No, they know how to work the system. They know how to work the entire financial system, the entire federal contracting system, and they work it to their advantage. Right? It's like, what about the rest of us? I'm going to be sitting here and the idea that eliminate USDA, the Department of Agriculture's inspectors, because that's considered bad regulation. You know what they do? They go into chicken plants and they make sure that not every piece of chicken that's going through has maggots in it. Who do you think wants more chicken to go through? The chicken companies. Right? Like, this is basic.
Let's keep it real. Let's keep it real and current, right? we just had a carrot outbreak, right? Like there was
Sorry, you said carrot outbreak, and I'm imagining like killer carrots walking around.
No, but like the carrots were bad, right? And so
the carrots were bad.
One of the reasons that we can kind of solve that problem is because we track the carrot production to the point where we can say, okay, these carrots in this bag came from this farm, went through this factory. Now let's go back and look at that factory. Now let's go back and look at that farm. Okay, this is the farm. It's a problem.
Oh,
where
E. coli.
else did carrots go,
there we go.
that were from that? Right. So E. coli. And so where else did these carrots go? Not just the one place at Whole Foods, but all the other places where it may have gone. That doesn't happen by accident.
No,
right?
It's
like
a
that's
whole
a whole system.
People are trained to it. It's designed. It operates without us having to think about it, which I love. I'm like, I don't want to have to be worrying about that. Government is supposed to make my life easier, so I don't have to worry about it. But when people say, and the MAGA movement is all about burn it all down, stop all of that, individual decision. I'm like, go grow your own carrots then, and make sure that you don't poison your children while you do it. Got it. You want to do that. But that whole idea of that expertise, that science, and that none of that is of value anymore. Let's be real. The oligarchs, the American version of oligarchs, the Elon Musks of the world, they don't care if people's kids die as part of this experiment. They're like, all right, survival of the fittest. Y'all didn't make it. That's the thing. They will kill their own voters, and they're okay with that. We saw that in COVID.
And they've said it's going to be hard in the short term, but then we'll have
something
new on the other side. It's not going to be hard for them, right? It's just going to be hard for the rest of us.
Like it wasn't hard for Dick Cheney. His kids didn't have to go to war, right? Like this is part of that power class and the moneyed class. They're not the ones who are going to have to go through the hardship at all. It's the rest of us.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's always good to talk to you.
Thank you,
At least I feel like when we get together, there's a little common sense is taking place. People can stay here at Trailblaze where we're trying to, keep being bolder and thinking bigger.
Be bold. And I appreciate you, Jamal, bringing the energy back to this
You too.
otherwise depressing conversation.